Alright, g'day and welcome everyone. This is an announcement. GeneralConfusion has started up, or by the time you've seen this, some weeks ago, started up a new Dominions 5 game on his channel. And as you all know, I've had a pretty compressed schedule lately. It's been hard to keep up with the video pacing, and it certainly is difficult to pick up new Dominions games. So, for the first time that I can remember, I've had to pass on a GC channel game of Dominions. But I have thrown my hat in to observe the thing. Now, Perun, you might say, you've got a serious recording backlog. What's going to be going on? Well, things are getting a little bit better over here, and I'm hoping for a better schedule. And while I do want to clear my backlog, I'd also like to be putting up videos on this new, very exciting game series that'll be done on GC's channel, which should also be having videos coming out from GC's perspective as well. So what I want to do today is introduce you to the game. I want to introduce you to the primary players, where they have spawned. We're starting the game on turn 3. We're just going to do a little bit of an introduction, show you what you are in for. This is an observer game, so I am the omniscient sitting in this tiny inaccessible province over here, the omniscience province, so no one can invade me, and I just have the full vision over the map, over the scales, over the score graphs, so we'll be able to see how the game develops. I've invited the players to comment, send things through to me. One thing that I will note is, like the other Omniscience game, which I'm going to resume posting on again soon, and unlike, for example, Lucid's tournament game, I'm not going to be doing 1-hour episodes on single turns. I'm going to be trying, after this introductory episode, to hit multiple episodes a turn, doing maybe a feature on one nation per turn, and talking about the big geopolitical developments, the wars, the major battles, as opposed to analysing every turn from every perspective. So, with all that said, let us introduce our players. And I'm going to find them from top to bottom. Spawning over here, playing Phlegra, we have GeneralConfusion. And his name is, let's have a look at the Pretenders of the World. I'll just read them from top to bottom. The Augurs did nothing wrong. That is Ermor, and that is played by Nosy Rat. So, Nosy is a ongoing presence in GC's games. You've seen him before. If you saw my Nazca game, I believe he was Ermor there. He's played Giant Lion Nations before, but I've seen him play some really solid Ermor, so it'll be interesting to see what he rocks out here. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates. So we've got, facing off against Ermor, we have Phlegra, which makes every game more interesting. That is Tiberius playing Phlegra. And because we have no Nazca in this game, I reckon pound for pound, Phlegra is going to be the most OP nation in this lineup, probably. Tannenbaum of Man. This is the man himself. This is FoxyDean. This is the hero of Xibalba stands. This is a fantastic ally of mine from previous games. Foxy is a little bit of a community hero for his noble stand in the other Observer game as the Bats of Xibalba. Very interested to see what he does as man, using his weaponized kindness and diplomatic tact to see how far he can get. Hunter 2 of Satis, that is Gripper. Gripper probably doesn't need any introduction for most of you. Very interested to see how Satis goes. Middle-aged Satis is probably one of the best incarnations of Satis, just because they have the defensive diseased minion. Their mages are very strong, and they can do the typical Satis things, like foul vapors, arguably better than the other incarnations of the nation. And a heavy hitter, playing Jotunheim, Giant Dad, that's Haerdalas. Haerdalas, who appears in so many of these games, and is just a consistently heavy hitter. One of the probably a better player than me, I reckon, at least in terms of how to handle battles and scripting. So I've kind of been lucky to get one over on him a couple of times. I'm really interested to see what he does with Jotunheim. I love the Jotunheim nations, so I'd be interested to see how they go. We've got a Xibalba played by Garcimer. Garcimer, of course, most famous for his Battle Brothers appearances in GC streams, where whichever character is named Garcimer obviously becomes a decapitating whirlwind of death. We'll see how he goes as a Dominions player. Biggest, baddest man around. So that is Orochi playing Ashdod. We all know Ashdod, we love Ashdod, and when I show you what this Ashdod has in store, you're going to love them just that little bit more. BallinStallin, an old ally of mine from our Disciples game. He played the god of Atlantis, who led eventually us to victory. Today he is playing middle-aged Xibalba, one of the most rush-baity nations in existence. They have a powerful late-game blood economy, but very little in the way of early defenses, so let's see how he goes. Then the man himself, GeneralConfusion, playing a Bosso bossopomorphic personification of middle-aged Phlegra. We know GC's got a soft spot for Phlegra, and today he will be rolling out the Angry Giants yet again. We've seen him play late-age Phlegra, we've seen him play middle-age Phlegra. It's good to see him roll them out again. Meanwhile, please don't rush me, GC of Phaeacia. That's Triph. Triph is playing Phaeacia, and the joke is on him because GC sure as heck won't be rushing him because, spoiler alert, that is an island spawn Phaeacia. So, ain't nobody except Relay getting to him. Magnificent of magnificent end. Truly, indeed, magnificent. That is Marchallmo playing. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, but Marchallmo, I don't know. Playing the magnificent end with an interesting bless that I will show you shortly, hopefully. I've had a quick look around this turn first. And then finally, the only true water nation on the map, and therefore inherently cancerous, you have Johnny TH Seed playing Bring Your Own Brain of middle-age Relay. Undoubtedly the best incarnation of Relay. So powerful nation, single spawn ocean, very few people here that are capable of contesting them underwater. If you are looking at this draw straight out, you're looking at the genuine threats probably, and this is just me making comment on the nations involved. I'm looking at middle-age Relay because of their uncontested water spawn, their amphibious nature, and their powerful roster. I'm looking at Celeria because they are always cancerous. And I'm probably looking at Haerdalas of Jotunheim because it's Haerdalas, and Jotunheim's really good. So let's have a look at their individual spawns and blesses. And you can see GC is not messing around to open up with our good friends, the Angry Giants of Phlegra, because as is often GC's style, we've got an Awake Monstrous Expander. A solid spawn as well. Cap circle of 5 provinces, nothing particularly scary, although the 109 income province here has a very significant defense of 80 units, including cataphracts. So, he's double expanded on turn 3. Obviously, the bull has gone right in. We'll check out the bull quickly. Okay, so this is pretty standard as a bull goes. It's shock, poison, fire, dark vision 50, forest survival. So, this is going to reinforce thug survival later in the game. It doesn't have like regeneration or anything insane. He hasn't gone for a really expensive sort of build. Got himself a little bit of magic access, but that's still a 217 hit point bull. And it starts with 17 protection. Once it berserks, that'll go up into the 20s. With that many hit points and the fact that it's trampling and thus killing people pretty efficiently, that white bull is going to manage to deal with most PD pretty effortlessly. Plus it also, if I believe, yeah, it's got recuperation. So even if it does get injured, it's going to have legs, it's going to have a lifespan, it's going to be able to keep operating. And then he's augmented his expansion army, and as you can see, he's primarily recruiting hurlers, Cyclops hurlers. These are Cyclopean equivalents to the Jotun unit of the same name. They have even less precision, because they only got one eye and does terrible depth perception. But they throw a 37 damage boulder to range 7. So that hurts if it hits you. So what he's doing is he's augmented his starting army of helotes. I'm going to turn the sound off because it's once I get out of the battle because it's causing me problems. And then they go and they beat people to death with clubs. They look like they're beating people to death with rocks, but they're actually beating people to death with clubs. So that's an expansion that cost 4 helotes going into a cloud mage. Not bad. Let's, however, turn the sound down and turn the click off just to make this a little bit easier. So that's our good friend GC, double expand on turn 3, very solid, awake monster, lots of good expansion paths. This army can probably take another province. He's recruiting more hurlers. Phlegra is not always really fast out of the gate. Once they get a couple of tyrants going to mass produce heal-up warriors, they can really, however, start to ramp the chap up. And having this awake monster just means A, no one's going to want to rush you, and B, your expansion should be pretty good. So that's GC. Spawning right next door, we have Xibalba, which is once again played by Garsamore. Now, not seeing any sign of an awake here. We're looking at one expansion on turn 3. We have again a 5-province cap circle. Nothing stupidly scary. There's an ancient ruin in that province, which lets you summon spiders, like Big Whoop. None of these are particularly valuable, but 270 incomes, that's good. And then you've got a 61 income cave full of Cynocephalians. So that one's going to be a little bit harder to clear for most nations, but you've got a lot of dark vision Bakemono. So the Bakemono are actually going to be able to stab the shit out of those Cynocephalians. Because Bakemono show are just really dangerous, especially in caves. And, handily enough, the first province Shinoyama takes, straight out of the gate, has 3 gems in it. How's that? So he gets fire, water, and air right out of the gate with his expansion army of Bakemono Show. The Bakemono Show cost 8 gold, so he loses 80 gold worth of troops from his starting army right out, but you can produce a lot of them. 5 resources, 9 rec points. You can mass produce some Bakemono Shows. Nowhere near as many as you can produce archers, but you can produce a lot of these guys. And when you fit 6 into a square, that's a lot of 15 damage, like 15 piercing damage Yari stabs. So, Shinoyama spawning right next to Phlegra. The little guys, the tiny little goblins next to the guys who only respect size. We will see how that one goes. Let's go south, I guess. So, 2 nations spawning on this sort of parallel line underneath the 2 that we talked about before. We have the frogs and we have Solaria. Wow, that's a bit of a dichotomy of nations, if ever there were one. So, in Solaria, we've got early gladiators coming out. I'm not a huge advocate for early gladiator expansion because if you're not super nuanced and targeted in how you use them, they're a more expensive way to expand. Like, they're not as valuable as building up Exensai and legionary infantry that are going to survive, because legionary infantry against most foes shouldn't take significant attrition. It can be better to focus on them, but we do have a double turmoil Solaria, so maybe he's having trouble rec pointing a lot of his legionary infantry. Starting army for Solaria, however, is very good. Allied legionnaires and velites clearing this province, 24 units, and they took 1 loss. The Solarian spawn's fine. There's this mountain range here, which shouldn't be a problem, but hey, there's a lava lake there with some free gems. This province here is a bit shit, actually. Spreads deadly disease and increases unrest, so the cave's not going to be great, but it will be easy to clear, unless that necromancer causes them problems. The joy of having a necromancer cause Solaria problems, like it is what it is. Then we've got some barbarian wastelands, so that province no one's going to be in a hurry to clear. We've got some Raptors and Solus over here. So these aren't the richest cap circle provinces, but they're okay. And I think he's taken the right choice for an initial expansion path. So this is another expansion group. He can go this turn. So he should be able to double expand next turn. This group, for example, could take the Wolf Tribe. Could probably take the Barbs. And hell, it could take 176 easily and grab this arena. That's a very valuable province right there. So Solaria. Very, very strong nation, spawning south of Shinoyama, east of the Frogs, neither of whom are particularly rushy nations, Man to the south. So, Solaria is looking like they got a pretty good spawn. Over here, the Frogs are probably further from the water than they would like to be. The Frogs probably wanted a coastline start, but they haven't got it. Either way, they're rolling out. What'd they lose? 1 Mooch Warrior and 1 Zot. That's a pretty cheap expand into, so admittedly, some pretty trashy units. They have a pretty... look, having this massive throne in your cap circle is not superb, but, you know, it is what it is. And they got a 21 income wasteland, not great. In fact, I would say this is one of the worst cap circles that I've seen so far. The provinces are mostly low income, but hey, at least they'll be relatively easy to break out of. He's going frog expansion. There's no sign. I was going to say there's no sign of an awake, but there is indeed an awake. All frog in all but looks the great sage. So, we got okay scales, and we got an awake researcher. Fascinating. We'll see the impact of that on the research scales pretty quickly. A great sage is one of the most cost-effective awake researchers in the game. Let's check if there is a profit here. If so, we'll be able to see the bless. Fire the blessing, please. What have we got? Oh, shit or bless. Morale attack 2. And that's it. Okay, so it's not really much of a bless at all. It is what it is. I mean, we can check to see if Solaria's got one, although Solaria, it doesn't really come down to the bless, does it? Prophet is already blessed. Wow, okay, so we got shock resistance, poison resistance, fire resistance, cold resistance, HP +1, Farcaster, undead leadership 80. That is an imprisoned rainbow bless. That's what that is. That's an imprisoned rainbow bless. With major and minor resistances. All the major and minor resistances except for not the major fire, because they've also got morale. They've used Astral to get Farcaster. They've used Death to get undead leadership. That is a huge rainbow. Which is a reasonable idea in the sense that Solaria struggles. It has a really neat trick in the early mid-game, in the skeleton spam and death communions. It's such strong tools, but eventually you want to break out of them. Having a rainbow mage come online later in the game, it's gonna work for them, because it's going to give them so many other options. So there you go. And they're sitting next to Xibalba, who are not exactly the most rush-happy nation on the planet. I feel like we have to go and talk about the water now. I feel like we have to. So I'll mark off Xibalba, and I'll mark off Solaria. And let's talk about the water spawn. First and foremost, let's talk about the most blessed position you can be in a Dominions game, potentially. If you're playing most water nations and you get this kind of spawn, your chance of winning the game is actually really bad, in my view. Like, unless you're absolutely expert and everyone else sort of drops the ball, your chance if you're playing like an early age Pelagia and you're in this lake, like, not good. You don't have a huge amount of land to work with. You're easy to bully for the people around you. It's going to be hard to win. But if you're middle-aged relay and you're truly an amphibious nation, you're in pretty good shape. So this is Johnny TH Seed's relay, middle-aged relay, spawning here in the lake. He's got a throne to himself, which is pretty cool. He's got a number of provinces that he can expand into. The frogs, who are the only other truly amphibious nation, are nowhere near him. And his cap circle is great. He's already taken one province. Let's have a look here. With significant Lobo Guard and Slave Trooper casualties, but welcome to relay life. He's got Shark Tribe to the south. Normally Shark Tribe would be really brutal and pen you in. If you can get a couple of Meteorite Guard up as relay, Meteorite Guard shit on Shark Tribe, because Shark Tribe just don't hit hard enough to get through the Meteorite Guard protection. So, relay is probably going to want to take these coastline provinces first. As soon as they've cleared the immediate cap circle water provinces for their resources, there's some good resources here, then they can start setting up a big coastal beachhead enclave here, because there's no one else particularly close, and because they can project huge amounts of power from their capital. Fantastic spawn. Then there's this spawn. Feel sorry for the guy. This is Triph. Triph's playing Phaeacia. Phaeacia is a good nation, but so when you play Phaeacia, there's a chance the game spawns you on an island. If it spawns you on an island, you get an orichalcum mine. Orichalcum mine means you have all the resources you could ever want and a bonus 150 gold in your capital. So this is by far the most valuable province in the game. The weakness is that you're on an island. So he can sail, obviously, but he's trapped on this island in a sense. So I originally awarded this the worst spawn possible award. I told the players who I thought had the worst spawn, and Phaeacia wins it. They win it, however, not because this island spawn is inherently bad, other than the fact that they're in the water with relay. If you're on this island, there's a relay here who knows that he has a 615 income province just sitting right here. And if you want to project power as Phaeacia, you're sending your troops all around the world, and all the while relay can just stalk near your capital, and if he ever decides to lock your capital down, just to threaten you or to extort you or raid you, sure, you can move your troops back, you can sail back, but you can't really do anything to relay. It's an extreme version of the sort of hostage situation that amphibious water nations can hold land nations with normally. So this is a really hard position. If you, however, manage to make friends with relay, then in many ways this is actually a more compact empire than you might think. Because sailing, and most of Phaeacia's stuff can sail, means you can cross 2 water provinces and then disembark. Being able to cross 2 water provinces and then disembark means that one move from Phaeacia's capital is this province, this province, this province, in these provinces all along here. Satis is one move. This province, no, it doesn't border the water. This province is this. In many ways, if you think about it, if Phaeacia is bold and gets enough intelligence from other players, there is essentially this massive potential cap circle, extended cap circle for Phaeacia, where you can have this huge coastal empire, and while it will look really spread out, it will in fact, most provinces will only ever be one move away from all other provinces, and the enemy has the nightmare situation of not knowing which troops are going to move from where unless you've scouted all the forts and provinces. Like, you won't know. If you're attacking this province, you need to know what's stationed up here in order to be safe. You know, it's a complicating situation. Or if you even at the very, very least, if you're attacking this province, you won't be able to see what's on Phaeacia's island, and Phaeacia's cap army can come squash you. So, if not for the fact that Relay was in the water, I would take this spawn and I would take it from one of the worst and call it actually pretty damn good, because with the right intelligence, you can absolutely have a fantastic coastal empire as Phaeacia. And of course, if you look at Pretenders of the World and Phaeacia, they have the special ability, trace income across oceans. So, and income bonus in coastal cities. So, you know, there's room for Phaeacia to grow, but this is a difficult start in many ways. We'll see what they do with it. Phaeacia also having that very strong capital province means that they don't need to expand a huge amount if they don't want to, and they should be pretty quick out of the gate. They should be able to train a large army in their capital. So if they do the right thing, they'll strike out maybe this way. If they find out where the players are, they'll recognize this is a bit of a dearth here. They'll grow here. Maybe they'll grow over here. Or just stake out a claim down here until they discover them. We'll see. So that's our water nations. Let's continue down the vertical. So in this part of the vertical, we have Satis, we have Jotunheim, and we have Man. Let's talk about Satis first. So Satis is bordering the water. Not a fantastic place to be. Satis is also bordering Ermor, not generally a fantastic place to be. But to their north, they're bordering Ind, and they're bordering Xibalba, which is, you know, not terrible. What do we see about this Satis instantly? Net positive scales, pretty good net positive scales, no sign of an awake. And a basic expansion army, which has taken one province. The cap circle is not good. It's 3 province cap circle. Oh, however, there's a great gold mine in 1, 2, 3. So that'll make up for it a little bit. There's also a lot of resources in 1, 2, 3 and 120. Not horrible, but you want a 5 province cap circle, not bloody 3. Anyway, let's have a look and see if we can see a bless. Because I'm going to assume this is the prophet. No. No, there's no prophet. Okay, just ordinary stuff. Okay, but there we go. Pretty clean expand. 4 elite warriors being lost. Like, yeah, it's not great, but you're training a lot more of them. He can probably consolidate and clear 140 next turn. He probably doesn't know that there's a great gold mine in this province, but when he clears it, he'll be very happy because it's pretty poorly defended, 30 bear tribe, relative to its value. Let's go over to Jotunheim. Jotunheim, we've got an awake idol of beasts. Okay, so we've got an awake regen bless. Let's have a look. This means we're going to be using some of the big boys. So we will see some of these big boys. These are the Thrimsherdings. They're size 4s. They're not size 6 like the Neefles of old, but they're still tough buggers. They have 41 hit points. They have ice protection, very high base protection. Decent stats, a broadsword. They have a chill aura, nothing like their big boys before them, but they are cheaper. They are sacred, and let's see what bless he has dropped on them. If it is not regen, I will eat my hat. Shock resistance 15 regen, there you go. So, there is no shock vulnerability in this nation anymore. They've gone from 5 shock vulnerable to 10 shock resistant. They're naturally cold resistant. And they've got regen 10. And with regen giants, everything is possible. So this should be a pretty low attrition expansion. You can see some poor sods freezing. Haerdalas intermixing his Vedi in with his giants to maximize attacks per unit density. So it's a flawless expand against 30 complete trash units. The capital circle itself is okay. We've got a 5-province cap circle. One bit is a river leading to a monastery of light, but getting to the river is really, really simple. And bridges make this a little bit easier too. So there's a bridge there to cross that river up there. Yeah, this is not a problem. This is a decent spawn. And the indies surrounding him are pretty trash. Like, they're pretty weak. He might be tempted to... Well, if you look where the farms are, he has reasons to go in all directions. So don't know what his expansion direction will be. Haven't talked to him properly yet. Good sites around him, but 0 attrition is a good place to start. The other thing I'll say is he's already pulling out long deads and vetties. Now, this is because one thing he did note to me, even though I haven't discussed the strategy with him, he has told me his first random recruit, if you look at Jotunheim, the first random vetty hag was a death one, which means you can pop some reanimation and potentially get some giant long dead and spend the early death gems that you get from Iron Woods just to get a few extra undead and maybe squeeze an extra province of expansion out. Nice little optimization tip there from Haerdalas of Jotunheim. And let's go over here and see FoxyDean. Man, I can't see an awake here. Let's have a look at the bless. In terms of the cap circle, 5-province cap circle, not particularly oppressive on the indies. Some free gems in a lava lake and some free a free nature gem here. So nice gem concentration in the cap circle. And it looks like he has already cleared 1 province with a couple of losses. Let's see if we can see what is coming along for the bless. Morale, poison resistance +5, unaging. Okay. Cool, this is not a heavy bless man. Oh, no, this is not a heavy bless man at all. No. No. This is wow. Okay. That is Order 3, Production 3, Growth 3, Luck 3, Magic 3. Wow. So, if Foxy can just not get eaten, just not instantly die to, like, Celeria, preferably, those scales will take him a long way. That is a recipe for a nation that can macro something fierce. Magic 3, Luck 3, and you'd think Order 3 and Luck 3 would sort of negate each other in a sense, because Luck lowers Order lowers the number of events, but it also unlocks a number of really good events. There are good events that are only possible with Order, Luck, and Order 3, Luck 3, Production 3. Oh, there's the events that are in his potential, his deck that might get rolled every turn are fantastic. So, wow. Okay. I like this. He's basically saying I have to be creative, but if I'm creative enough to survive and build a moderately sized empire, like you can build something on that. That's pretty cool. I'm willing to bet the scales aren't so good down here. Oh yeah. That's the stuff. So that is Turmoil. There's some productivity, but Turmoil 1, Misfortune 3, Drain 3 from Ashdod. And what do we have? We've got a 4-province cap circle, including a 100 barbarian province and a 30 heavy cav province. Well, okay, so the game has decided that Ashdod needs to be slowed down in the early game. So, slow them down they have. Jeez. The Deer Tribe can be killed, and whatever was here is already dead. Gileadites and Amorites have been killed, Wolf Tribe, but he's now going to have to expand to Ichthyids. Oh, I don't want to do that, so you might want to go up here to Gold Mountain instead, but then you're fighting a few cataphracts, you just don't know how many. So let's see, what do we got? Larger. Okay, so we're going to be rocking size 6 Anakites. That's cool. So we're not going in Awake with regen. Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. No, that doesn't work. That's a really cheap bless. Or at least moderately cheap. You don't end up with those scale. Okay, so there are some incarnates on this. This is going to be... What are his titles? Sorry, we're just going to have a look. Patron of Herbalists, Divine Smith, Lord of Healing Arts, Nature Earth. Nature Earth. And I think Patron of Berserkers is Earth, not Blood. And yeah, and it can't be Blood, because there's no non-incarnate Blood stuff on them, and the Blood incarnate stuff is pretty, like... I think the Mad Lad... I think this is regen larger. I think this is enough Earth, and then, like, all the nature in the world to get regen larger. Because what would that do? Regen larger gives you size 6 anakites, which have, like... Wow, okay. That's hideously expensive. But and we can see it's hideously expensive. So it'd have to be a not stupidly expensive dormant chassis built for Nature Earth. I'd have to look at the God creation options for Ashdod to figure out what the cheapest way to do that. But maybe that's what he's done. Because the only other option is that you've gone really high Earth and there's another incarnate Earth in there and you picked up like Fortitude or something. Or Fire Shock Res. But that doesn't seem like something you tank your scales to get. I think that's regen larger. I think that this is going to be a really difficult expansion because he's got shitty scales, he can't produce units, and the units he does produce aren't even really that good because he can't lean on his sacreds because, one, he can't produce many, and two, that their bless is not particularly good. But however many he's got, come turn 12 or whenever his god wakes up and his bless comes online, I think he's just going to become a monster and eat someone. Around like turn 18 or something, because suddenly he's going to have these horrifically OP size 6 regenning giants. I think that's it. I think this is a like turn 12 dormant rush bless. That's crazy. I love it. If that's what it is, I might be talking about my ass, but you know, it is what it is. So I'll tick Ashdod off, and in a couple of turns, however long from now that is, we can talk about whether or not I was right. So I've talked about Jotunheim, I've talked about Man. That leaves on my list Ind and Ermor. Well, let's talk about Magnificent Ind first. This is Magnificent Ind down here. Magnificent Ind, one of the nations... If I was to play a nation next, I think all else being equal, I'd try my hand at Ind. I think they're sufficiently complex and micro-intensive, but also they have lots of cool theory craft elements. It'd be them or like Nabar, like someone with some real interest to the mechanics that I'd want to get into. Because Ind has so many cool mechanics and intricacies and events to them. But here they are. Let's have a look at the important thing for Ind. Let's have a look at the Bless, because with so many sacreds, it matters. What have we got? Solar weapons, shock res, poison res, fire res, cold res, defense 2, magic resistance, undying, HP, strength +4. Jesus. Okay, so their fundamental stats of the Ind Sacreds is not going to be incredible. Although +4 strength and +2 defense are good, and there's a lot of extra HP there. No regen, so if they go into Undying, they still die. But you've still essentially taken a human HP unit from 10 to 17. So you've increased the number of hit points by 70%. They're resistant to just everything. They're resistant to poison, cold, fire, shock. So these guys will be fantastic line holders against every battlefield wipe. Not everyone, but close to every battlefield wipe in the game. And against the ones that are MR negate rather than elemental resist, well, their MR is pretty good. Solar weapons is a bizarre one. It does 3 armor piercing fire damage versus when you hit someone, you do 3 AP fire damage. The interesting thing is if you hit ethereal units, even if the normal hit is negated by ethereal, I think the solar weapon still goes off. But 3 AP damage is a pittance. it's really weak against anything that's got any protection or toughness to it. It's not superb. Where it can be useful is if you're fighting absolute junk. Like if you're fighting Soulless and whatever, fighting absolute junk, putting a few extra fire damage points on them, they have no armor, can be helpful. Also, the damage is magical, which is helpful, and if things are fire vulnerable, it can be helpful. So it's a non-incarnate weapon bless, and it's much weaker than the other weapon blesses. But anyway, 20 damage with the broadswords. The weakness here is the attack statistic is pretty low. Like if you were fighting elves, for example, you just never hit them. Or if you're fighting white centaur or whatever, you never hit them. But defense skill 16 is respectable. Attack 11 is it's okay, but they do hit really hard and they're resistant to just about everything. So they should chew through these independents with nary a problem. And when they do take damage, they can take damage without dying. So did they lose anyone? Yeah, they lost one Baculite. Cool. What they're recruiting lots of these soldier priests who with their 14 prot and their 17 hit points are probably going to be really survivable. So, Ind, not a fantastic cap circle. There is a death gem in the cap circle, which is handy. There's some ghouls and soulless here, which they can slaughter pretty handily. Wolf tribe, yeah, they can handle all this. So, Ind's in a decent position, although you don't want to be on the lake bordering relay, but border relay they do. Finally, over here, you've got Ermor. And as I said, this is Nosy playing Ermor, and he's good. Like, he knows his Ermor. Obviously, Ermor doesn't take superb scales, but he has taken the Luck 3 and the Magic 3. The Luck 3 is important because you want to get a Timu out early, plus the other heroes, but mostly a Timu. Plus, gems and gold for Ermor, they come from your luck scales, not from your other scales. I'm going to assume, we're in summer. I was going to assume that he's Cold 3 and that Magic 3 is a good one for Ermor too. Let's have a look at the Bless, because the Bless will be deciding how evil the Lictors and stuff are. No, we're not blessing. No, we're not blessing. He's not going to show me the bless. All right, we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to wait. So losing Long Dead to expand. Ermor, the cap circle doesn't really present much of a problem. They can cross rivers effortlessly. They can kill most independent types effortlessly, and of course they've got a very large supply of replacements whenever they lose troops. So the key thing for Ermor is who you border. So who do you border? Well, they border Ashdod, Ind, I guess Cetis, and then maybe through narrow connections, maybe Jotunheim, maybe Phlegra. I don't think that's a great spawn for Ermor then. Because, hear me out. Ind and Cetis have defining characteristics of having really powerful priests, and at the start of the game, nothing clears undead chaff quite like Holy Threes, and both Cetis and Ind can shit out Holy Threes and high-level priests, so they can deal with undeads, the large amounts of chaff spam, and then they just have to kill the sacreds. Ashdod doesn't have easy chaff clears, but dear God, those giants. Although, Lictors will counter giants real well. So if you can intermix the Lictors with the undead and get it so the giants are hitting ordinary undead while the Lictors hit with the axes up and down, it's a difficult scripting arrangement, but if you can do it, that might actually be a decent matchup. But for the ordinary undead, they'll never bring an infinite number of undead will never kill a single large or regen Ahriman Anarchite. Just won't happen. But there you are. Okay, so there's our map. In terms of overarching sort of observations, we've put some of the heavy hitters, it seems. The map gen has put Haerdalas, GC, and Ermor are all in this little death triangle in the center of the map, trying to expand outwards or into each other. I like that. That's going to cause some nice little early pressure. Every nation that is on the border with Relay's Lake is going to be really bloody annoyed by that fact, none so much as Phaeacia. Phaeacia is going to have to really think about how they handle their diplomacy with Relay, and also how they go about setting up an enclave empire without getting people to throw them back into the sea. Interesting to see how Phaeacia plays this game. We've got some nations that are going to be slow burners. Ashdod is going to be a slow burn until turn 12 or 13 when they get their Bless online. Presuming they're dormant, like, they could have an even crazier Bless if they're in prison, but then you'd, like, not worth it. And then you have lots of late thriving nations like Xibalba, like End, who would really benefit from a little time. You've got a really heavy Scales build man, but the Scales built man surrounded by some pretty Scales build other nations as well, unless you want to count Ashdod. So yeah, it's interesting. Ermor not bordering Celeria, I think, is unfortunate for everyone else in this game. An ideal and a very thematic spawn would have been for Ermor and Celeria to start right next to each other. Instead, these two undead superpowers are separated by a significant number of players whichever way you go. So they're probably not going to fight each other immediately. Really, they have to expand through another nation first. So there you are. The historical conflict of dominions, the Celeria v. Ermor showdown with Marignan and Ulm entering, you're not going to have. Very unfortunate. Instead, it looks like this undead plague is going to be the problem of Ashdod, Satis, and End. And over here, Celeria has some friendly neighbours in the Frogs, Shiniyama, Man, and Relay. An interesting spawn. I'm happy to be back in the saddle. As I said, this one's going to be trying to keep up broadly with the game, sitting with about a 20-turn lag is what I'm going to try and hold to, while I also start cleaning out the backlog. My recording pace is going to start to improve again now, so stick with this series, but also be excited because I should be catching up on a couple of Patreon requests over the next 2 weeks, plus starting to clear the recording backlog. I want to finish my Phoenix Point series. I want to get some of the historical Dominions games like the Observer game and my old Ulm game, which I've never finished uploading. I want to get that one up as well because it's a firecracker of a game in the late game. I want to show it because you haven't seen Dominions be entertaining until you have seen Axe Warriors try and kill Therodian demons and titans en masse in the late game. It's good stuff, it's good fun. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you to our players for allowing me to observe, and I'll see you shortly as this game truly kicks off.